Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Okay, so this question, they wrote in and said, my son with ASD and ADHD is almost 13, and in the last few weeks, his behavior has added significantly. We have an urgent appointment with his psychiatrist on Tuesday, which would be today, but I wanted to hear from other parents and experts. He has abruptly begun exploding violently with siblings over such offenses as she was whining. He spit in 5-year-old sister's food when back was turned and justified it because she was whining. I heard a thud and an ow from my 3-year-old in the other room, and he says his answer was he was going too slow on the stairs and he hit him into the wall. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified that he will seriously injure a sibling. All I can think of is the next time this happens, we go to the hospital because I don't know what else to do. Please help me. 13 years old, and it is sudden onset of this.
I can imagine that you must be pretty scared right now. This is really overwhelming. So I'll just throw out a couple of ideas and comments, and of course, please, Shannon, you do as well. This is, it's one of those things that I think needs to be dealt with, and there's lots of different things to consider. So sometimes his diagnosis is ASD and ADHD, and so it would be understandable that you might conclude right away that this aggression is coming because the ADHD is picking up for some reason, right? That is possible, and when you talk to his psychiatrist, the psychiatrist may increase his medication if he is on medication, which I think he should be probably at this point. ADHD stuff tends to increase a little bit during the teen years, so that's quite possible. That's one thing. And there are a lot of non-stimulant medications now for ADHD, which is great. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is that he's frustrated or can't get his communication, he's not communicating well. And when that happens, sometimes our kids act out and do challenging behaviors, and we kind of excuse it a little bit because of their ASD diagnosis. And so we allow it because we feel bad about the fact that they're frustrated or maybe going through something, whatever it is. So I would recommend that this is a really good time if you don't have ABA going on in his life. This is the time where you should be reaching out to your insurance company or payer and saying, I need help and I need it immediately. And this is one of those scenarios. There are scenarios where a payer will step in immediately with kind of urgent funding, right? Immediate funding and some help that will come your way, which means you would get a board-certified behavior analyst, hopefully, and a team of trained behavior technicians. I don't know where you are, but there's ABA now across the country. And so that they will come in, the behavior analyst will help teach you and essentially the whole family and tell you kind of what to do and what not to do. Like there are certain things that he's doing, like the 2 behaviors that you mentioned, that are just not okay. They're not allowed. And of course he's 13 and I assume he's difficult to manage, and therefore usually when our kids are older, we tend to kind of walk on eggshells around them a little bit because they're aggressive and they can get scary. And so I wouldn't want you trying to manage this on your own. I would really recommend that you get a team of behavior analysts or a behavior analyst and a team of behavior technicians immediately to help set up different contingencies so that he learns what is okay and what is not okay, right? Because today it might be his siblings who are younger and scapegoats, essentially, but tomorrow it could be anyone else at school, like let's say a teacher or a peer, and then he'll get kicked out of school. or later on in his life, it could be anyone in his, let's say, environment, whatever it is that he's doing. So you want to be able to teach him rules of society right now. The sooner the better. And doing, challenging behaviors to his siblings, behaviors that are damaging to his siblings, is not allowed. That's just not allowed. And no matter what his level of frustration is, there are other ways for him to cope. And those are some of the things that the behavior analyst would help you with. For instance, helping him identify when he's about to lose his temper, giving him an area perhaps in his room where no one else is allowed to come, where he can simply get up and go over there, sit, relax, put on some music, do something that is calming, teach him exercises that will calm him down. Because this is like self-regulation of aggression, which honestly is it's not just our kids, but a lot of people need this training. And it's a matter of like just observing oneself, identifying that my blood pressure is about to raise, I'm getting upset now, I need to get away from here, and I need to go do something that's going to calm me down. Medications will help with that, but again, it goes back down to teaching him kind of the limits, the pros and cons of, how he behaves. And then, of course, a behavior analyst would help you put in place situations where he's going to succeed and be rewarded. You got to turn this around, because sometimes our kids do these behaviors and they get into a habit of just getting attention when they do something bad. And that's kind of what's happening right now, right? He's doing these bad things and then you might be getting on his case. So we have to put situations in place where he's getting attention and he's getting a lot of reinforcers and rewards for doing good, and teaching him how to avoid doing these things that are harmful to others by going away and calming down or whatever it might be. And also giving him the ability to communicate. Like maybe he can come to you and say, I'm really frustrated right now. And you can then help him, or whoever is around him, you can then help him and say, it's okay. Just tell your sister, please stop whining. And then you can go to your room, get away from it while she's doing that. It's very hard sometimes for kids with ASD to be able to understand another person's perspective. This is the theory of mind deficit. So he's not doing this to be mean. He just doesn't understand how things are from the sibling's perspective. And that's a longer, very important lesson for him, but it takes time for our kids to learn that when they do these challenging behaviors, how the other person feels. And if you get a behavior analyst in place, they can help you teach these things to him. The last thing I just want to say is that sometimes when our kids suddenly start to act up, you have to look at other environments and make sure there's nothing weird going on. And, I've had children where like they'll start to act up at home all of a sudden, and they've not had any of this stuff going on. And it's because someone at school is bullying them, and they come home, and when you get bullied, you scapegoat someone else, and that is a very common thing. So please make sure you have the opportunity to observe at school, find out exactly what's going on, make sure all of his other environments, he's safe, and nothing is bringing harm to him, which he's now internalizing and showing to his siblings.
I love that. And, because the question I was going to ask is what changed?
Yeah,
Since
exactly.
it's sudden, what changed?
Exactly.
And like be a super detective. And I think we get scared sometimes to look at what possibly changed because we don't want to.
Absolutely right.
We catastrophize and say it could be something really horrible. But if that's the case, you would want to know it and you would want to be able to intervene.
That's right.
Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes things just get wonky or upside down, and it could be the smallest thing that's kicking their keister. The things that come up for me are I have an allergy to wheat. I don't have celiac, but I have an allergy to wheat, and I can't have wheat. It throws me off, and that's a really good other point too. That's a very good point. Makes me crabby, and you could say anything to me, and I'm just like about it. So, there could be something going on, and you can become allergic to something. It could be that he wasn't, but now he is allergic to it.
That's so true as well.
Your ability
Very
to
true.
cope, I always think of coping as this multi-layered thing, and when you have an allergy, and it's the time of year, this is exactly the time of year for me where I have to be super careful about my allergies, because there's the outside allergies too. So that peels off several of my layers of coping.
That's
And if
true.
I were to have wheat right now, Katie, bar the door.
Yeah.
I would be the ugliest, nastiest
but
person to
that's-
you, and you
well,
don't deserve that.
No, I totally get that, Shannon, and I'm fully with you. But even when we're not feeling well, we kind of know what the rules are.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I just want to make sure, like sometimes as parents, we know our kids are not feeling well for one reason or another, or something is frustrating them or whatever it might be, and we allow them
Yes.
to break the rules. And that's...
I'm so guilty of this.
That's what I'm saying. And,
So
and you got to
guilty
be
of it.
very careful with that,
Yeah.
because what you're actually teaching the child is a little bit of histrionics. Like it's, you can break the rules if you're sick.
Right.
And so then the child will learn this whole other thing of maybe I should act sick. So you got to be very careful with all this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't pay attention to it. It is important to pay attention to. And it's always when your child is either feeling like a allergy or just digestive issues or hasn't slept or there's something else going on, pressure, stress, whatever it might be, make life easier for them, give them more rewards, but still they can't break the rules.
Right. But I do think it's worth checking out. And then the other thing is that sometimes there's just a misunderstanding. And I think what's super hard is communicating misunderstanding is hard when there isn't a communication deficit, right? But really quick, funny story that when I won't say who, there was a member of my family many years ago who we had twin people in the family. I'll say that. I'm going to get in trouble. But I wasn't raised particularly religious. So those kinds of stories weren't necessarily in our household because of my parents and who they were. But when it came time to send a couple of people to preschool, the correct preschool happened to be a religious preschool. And so my mother was paying for it and was all happy that they were going to this preschool. And all of a sudden, one of the people started acting out. It was sudden. Just behaving in such a way that we were like, what happened?
Right.
Now that individual, so figure they were 4, that individual had full language capability, so that finally, after putting up with like 2 weeks of this, her mother, let's say that, said, what is going on with you? Why are you behaving this way?
Yeah.
And she looked at her straight in the face and said, well, I learned at school that Jesus was good and he got stapled to the wall for it. So I don't want to be good and get stapled to the wall.
Yeah.
Because she'd never heard, I know, it's terrible, right? Stapled to the wall. Please forgive me. But, and we have other people that kids who were wetting the bed and wetting the bed for years. And then finally, one night in like just total sleep deprived, the mother said, what can I do to get you to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom? And this young man said to his mom, am I allowed to get up? You told me I couldn't get up in the night.
Yeah.
And she went, what? Oh, my good. These little misunderstandings that
Kids
sometimes
interpret things completely differently.
Yes,
Yep, they do.
yes, and it's everybody, including our kids on the spectrum,
right.
and it might be harder to be a detective to get to the bottom of it, but the fact that you say that it came on suddenly, like the detective in me, what you have taught me is something's going on. Something's going on somewhere.
Yeah.
Something, it could be as easy as something, he's 13, so his body is changing, and maybe he's become allergic to something.
That in itself, actually, Puberty in itself is actually another thing as well, for sure. Especially with boys, you do go through a period where, their hormones are changing and all of this stuff starts to come up.
And Parker said that. See, we just talked for 20 minutes, but Parker said that. He said it could be, thank you, Parker. Parker's calling it like he sees it, and he's got it right. Okay, so I do want to get to this other question because it came in 2 weeks ago, and we didn't get a chance to get to it, about a 7-year-old. That a 7-year-old slaps and sometimes kicks mom and dad. He only demonstrates this behavior at home. And she's thinking that the function of this behavior is negative attention, but really wanting some help for it. When it's only happening at home, slapping and kicking mom and dad.
Yeah. So, and I see a bunch of other questions that are coming in also about maybe what it would be helpful is if I just talk a little bit about the functions.
Let's do that. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time on autismnetwork.com. We hope to see you there.